Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are today talking about a champion that I don't think gets quite enough love overall, really, although there are, of course, some videos on YouTube of this particular champion. So we are talking about one of the champions that you get from the Doom Tower. For completing it on normal, I believe, she's going to be one of the better options that you pick up there. The Doom Tower champions kind of have a repertoire for being a bit poor champions, all things considered. I say that as I'm on the hard Doom Tower and I'm now collecting fragments for Jinro the Stork, who is an absolutely fantastic looking champion, but in terms of his actual kit, he is less than stellar, let's say. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this particular champion and what makes her so special. And I will actually be going ahead and showcasing her inside the Scarab boss as well, so make sure to stay tuned for that. As you can see from the reviews, people aren't too high on her, apparently. I think they might be a little bit mistaken. First of all, she looks absolutely badass. Such a cool looking champion. Void epic from the orcs, obviously, right? So she's got no affinity issues or anything like that, which is pretty cool. If we go ahead and take a look at the kit, she has an attacks one enemy on the A1, has a 60% chance of placing a poison for 2 turns, damage based on attack. A2 attacks one enemy, 100% chance of placing 2 5% poisons and a 25% poison sensitivity debuff for 2 turns, which is so incredibly strong as well, right? Getting those poisons out there, making the target more susceptible to poison damage is just a fantastic combination. And finally, on the A3, Vigor Bloom places a big version of increased defense and a big version of increased attack on all allies for 2 turns. So she already has a kit that can place poison on multiple skills, and she can also place a poison sensitivity, but she can also set up and buff for your team regardless of if you need defense or attack. So she's looking fantastic for obviously soloing content, right? So Scarab, Dragon, those sorts of things, but also more specifically Clan Boss, she could get a lot of use with her kit. But it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. Her passive, when attacked, has a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all poison debuffs on the attacker by 1 turn. So we see essentially passives like this on some other champions inside the game, like if we come over to Shadowkin, and then if we take a look at Taragi the Frog, right? He has this passive of a placing a poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. So it's very similar in function to something like a Taragi, except she has so many poisons that she's placing in the rest of her kit, and she's just extending those, right? So essentially, you get the poison debuff bar filled up, and there's a very solid chance that she's going to be able to basically just max it out, right? So, and this has a 50% chance, and I believe it's per hit because there's no cooldown or anything like that. So I was using her inside Scarab earlier, and we had some poisons that were like an 8-turn duration. So once she gets cooking, she basically doesn't need any additional help with keeping the debuffs up, right? So you can really get rid of like a Vizier inside your team if you're going really, really old school Clan Boss. If you're a more kind of New Age Clan Boss team, she's still going to be useful because she could be built as damage, right? Especially if you have like a unkillable or a block damage composition. Her reviews, like I say, I think they are incredibly inaccurate. So we're actually going to go through here. I think she's a solid 5 for Clan Boss. I think she's a 5, without a question. Maybe I'll start doing this in my videos. I also think she's a solid 5 for Dragon's Lair, right? The only downside that you could really argue about her is that she's not doing AoE poisons, but there's not a lot of epic champions that are going to be doing AoE poisons. There's less epic champions that you can guarantee that you're going to be getting that are doing poisons in general, right? So she's basically a guaranteed champion. You'll get her over time. Fire Knight's Castle, she's probably a 2. Honestly, I think that is accurate. Faction Wars, I also think she's a 5, 100%. She deserves such a higher rating than what she has. For Faction Wars, she's obviously bringing the poisons to help take down the boss. She's bringing poisons to help take down, you know, just whatever enemies you might need. And having damage inside Faction Wars is crucial, right? I remember myself trying to push through Faction Wars and struggling quite a bit for damage on certain waves, especially when you're going against like Manaya and those sorts of things. So she can help out a lot with that. But she's also bringing the increased defense and the increased attack. So it doesn't matter what kind of a damage dealer you're trying to set up, right? So she's very, very strong for that. For Chimera, she's probably going to be like a 2. She could maybe help out with some of the trials where you need poison sensitivity or something like that. Campaign locations, I can't give her a 1 or I can't give her a 2. I think she deserves maybe like a 3. She can definitely do it. Arena defense, that's going to be a 1. She's not getting much use there, right? Void Keep, we could maybe give her kind of just middle of the road. I don't like rating champions lowly unless they genuinely have done something essentially that deserves that rating. So Arena offense, obviously. What is going on here? Arena defense, Magic Keep. Magic Keep will give her a 3 as well, kind of middle of the road. Spirit Keep. And then let's go through here the rest of the way. Ice Golem, right? I think she could be very serviceable. Minotaurs, if you have her built to solo, she could be very serviceable as well. Spiders, not so much. She's not really going to be good there. Hydra, not so much. Single target poisons inside Hydra is kind of useless. You can maybe get some use out of her inside Iron Twins. You know what? For a damage dealer, I think she'd be okay for Iron Twins, right? Bringing that increased defense, bringing that increased attack for the rest of your team. Sand Devils, basically useless. Phantom Shoguns, maybe like a 2. So those are my ratings. Those are the ratings I'm going to submit for her. And hopefully it helps to make this a little bit more fair in her defense. So also one thing to keep in mind with the showcase that we're going to be doing today, I don't actually have any sort of masteries on her. So she could be exponentially stronger if you built her with masteries. For masteries, where you're using her is going to determine what you want on her. So I would recommend, of course, coming down here to War Master is going to be a very solid way to go, considering that you can get those extra big chunks of damage, especially if you're using her inside like Clan Boss or something like that. And then, of course, any sort of the defensive tree like Retribution as well as Deterrence are going to be very, very strong as well. Don't have a relic on her, so again, she could be much stronger there as well. We do have her booked out, of course, and we do have her 6-star Awaken, so I was lucky enough to get the 6-star Awakening. I do have her inside Emergency Heal, and then for the gear, I do also have her inside a Blood Shield accessory, so she's going to get plenty of shields to help keep herself topped up. If you're not running Emergency Heal, I would recommend going ahead and running her inside Nature's Wrath, so especially if you're building her for damage, because this is going to mean that for every debuff she places successfully, her damage is going to increase by 5%, all the way up to 30% damage increase, so she can definitely put in some work. And then in terms of the gear, this is how we're rocking it. So we got 215 on the speed, we got 410 on the resistance, 372 on the accuracy, 64,000 on the HP, and then 3,500 on the defense. Notably, we also have her built inside a regeneration and an immortal set. So she's going to be incredibly tanky, very hard to take down, and that is what we like to see, especially when we're trying to solo content. So let's go ahead, let's go into Doom Tower here, and let's see what she's capable of. So this is the team that I run currently, and we're essentially going to do the same team composition, except we're going to switch her out instead of the Vergis. And, you know, this might actually end up being a little bit faster. I don't know. I haven't really tested it, but when I did run it earlier, I think it was around like 3 minutes or something like that. It wasn't too crazy. If it ends up being really crazy, I can always just cut and, you know, come back to the video later. So that being said, depending on when this goes up, it probably hasn't gone live yet, but one of the projects I'm working on currently is a game review for Blasphemous, the first one. So make sure to check that out when it goes live on the channel. It would be much appreciated. I'm trying to spread out a little bit, cover additional areas, additional games, different types of content, just more of a diverse selection, essentially. So, you know, that includes things like more game reviews, covering different games, those sorts of things. So, the support on the channel has been absolutely fantastic, and I thank you all so much for that. It's always heartwarming, that's for sure. Essentially, the way this particular team works is we have Rockbreaker in here just to provoke the waves. So we don't need to worry about them getting turns, block damages, block debuffs, those sorts of things. And then we have Queen Ava coming in, who's essentially just doing some AoE work and taking people out. She also has a block revive, so if we have like a really annoying revive heavy team or something like that, she can essentially take them down. The only annoying thing is on this particular stage, Vergamkar is immune to provokes. So that's kind of disappointing. The big sausage himself over here, the champion on the right, if you're not familiar with him. And then we have Liburga, who's just kind of doing her thing. And you can see she's getting some pretty chunky heals, obviously, with just taking her turn. So she's getting about 12.5k heals there. And then she's also going to be getting the shield placed on herself as well, which is so incredibly strong. And then the shield being placed on herself does actually mean that the boss, as you can see, is not going to counterattack whenever she takes a turn, which is very nice. So it is quite a nice composition. Having her fully awakened like this is super strong as well, because it means every time her blood shield pops, so basically she's going to go and attack with whatever skill she uses. If you're looking to min-max this, you can probably turn off her A3 as well, depending on the stats you have. But essentially, she'll go in, she'll hit them with her A1 or her A2, as you can see there. and then she gets this like minuscule shield on her. So you see it there, it's like basically nothing, but as soon as that pops off, she gets healed for like 9,600, which is pretty crazy. So obviously 15% of her max HP. As you can see up here as well, we are actually extending the durations of the poison she's placing. So currently, there's a 4-turn duration poison on there. The boss does actually have counterattack up right now too, so he's going to be hitting her a lot, which means those poisons are going to be getting extended a lot as well. And of course, it is a bit annoying just that I haven't set up her A3 to be turned off, essentially. I don't think we'd need the A3, but you can see we do have the poisons getting extended there, so we have multiple 2-turn duration poisons going up. We have an 8-turn duration poison stacked up on the boss already as well, which is pretty crazy. And you can see she's just really multiplying the poisons that are on the boss's debuff bar, right? So we already got 6 of them up there, 4 more. And we have a maxed debuff bar with just poisons, right? So they do fall off, unfortunately. She's getting kind of a low proc rate on the 50% there of extension. But at the end of the day, she is still soloing this boss without too much of an issue. And it is nice as well that you're not depending solely on RNG. So I know there's a lot of teams where they actually use Taragi the Frog to solo the Scarab King. And then the issue with that is his poisons are coming from his passive where he has a 50% chance to place the poison. So there's a lot of RNG involved with the poison placements. Whereas with her, you're guaranteed to get the poison placements. It's just, you know, whether or not they're going to fall off. But that being said, if they fall off, it means the boss is taking turns and it means that the boss is taking damage from the poison. So once again, we almost have a full debuff bar here, which is pretty crazy. We got, what, like 8 poisons up there. The poisons get extended as well, so I can now confirm that it is per hit as well. I've seen them get extended by 2 turns on these particular ones here. So it looks like we have at least like 5 or 6 poisons that are just not going to fall off now. As long as the RNG works in our favor, of course. So you can see they're getting extended, and this is absolutely ridiculous. We just have so many poisons on the boss that every time he takes a turn, he's taking like 70,000 worth of damage, which is pretty crazy. Not that time, obviously, but... And it's not 70,000. It's not the official number, people. But, you know, it is what it is. As you can see, we got through it perfectly fine. Liburga did some really, really good work. She is an absolutely fantastic champion, in my opinion. Very solid base stats as well for an epic champion. The 17,000 HP is a little bit low, about 1,500 defense, but then she also does have 101 base speed, which is a lot faster when she came out than a lot of champions that we were seeing inside the game as well, right? So let's compare those base stats to somebody like a Venomage, who's known to be essentially the solo queen, right? So slower speed, a little bit more defense, about the same HP. Now Venomage, if you do have Venomage, she's probably going to be just a direct upgrade considering she has that AoE poison as well as heal reduction. So I'm not saying that she's the best solo champion inside the game or the best poisoner in this side of the game, really. But if you have her, you don't have other options, she might fill a niche that you need filled. And that being said, thank you all so much for watching the video. I'll see you next time.